The crystal chandeliers sparkled like diamonds above the grand ballroom, casting golden light across hundreds of guests dressed in their finest attire. Marcus Chen stood at the center of it all, his black tuxedo perfectly tailored, his bow tie straight, his smile wide and confident. This was his moment. His wedding reception was everything he had imagined. Elegant, expensive, and exclusive. The kind of event that would be talked about for years. But in less than 5 minutes, that perfect moment would shatter into 1,000 pieces, and Marcus would learn a lesson he would never forget. The evening had started beautifully. Marcus and his new wife Sarah had just finished their first dance. The photographer was capturing every moment. The 5-tier wedding cake stood like a work of art near the windows. The band was playing smooth jazz. Everything was perfect. Marcus adjusted his cufflinks and surveyed the room with satisfaction. He had worked hard to reach this point in his life. At 32, he was a successful investment banker with a corner office downtown. He drove a Mercedes. He belonged to the right clubs. He knew the right people. This wedding reception, held at the most exclusive hotel in the city, was proof of how far he had come. Sarah stood beside him, radiant in her white wedding gown. Her veil floated behind her like a cloud. She held her bouquet of white roses loosely in one hand. But Marcus noticed something. She kept glancing toward the entrance, her smile flickering slightly, her eyes showing a hint of worry. "What's wrong?" Marcus asked, leaning close to her ear. "Nothing," Sarah said quickly. I'm just looking for my father." Marcus felt his jaw tighten. Sarah's father, Robert Hayes. The man was a constant source of embarrassment. Robert worked as a janitor at an elementary school. He lived in a small apartment on the other side of town. He drove an old pickup truck that made terrible noises. He wore clothes that were clean but clearly worn and patched in places. Marcus had tried to convince Sarah to keep the wedding small, to avoid inviting certain people. But Sarah had insisted. "He's my father, Marcus," she had said firmly. "He's walking me down the aisle and he's coming to the reception. That's not negotiable." So Marcus had agreed. But he had told himself that Robert would stay in the background, that the man would understand he didn't belong among Marcus's corporate colleagues and wealthy friends. Then Robert appeared at the entrance. Marcus felt his stomach drop. Robert Hayes stood in the doorway, wearing an old suit that was at least 20 years out of style. The jacket was slightly too large. The pants were slightly too short. His shoes were polished but scuffed. His gray hair was neatly combed. But it couldn't hide the weathered lines on his face, the rough hands of a man who had worked with his hands his entire life. Robert looked around the grand ballroom with wide eyes. Clearly, overwhelmed by the opulence. He held a small wrapped gift in his hands, probably something simple and inexpensive. Marcus thought with a flash of irritation. "Sarah, sweetheart," Robert called out, his face breaking into a warm smile when he spotted his daughter. Several of Marcus's colleagues turned to look. Marcus saw Jennifer Walsh from the firm whisper something to her husband. He saw David Park raise his eyebrows. Marcus felt heat rising in his face. This was not how this evening was supposed to go. Sarah started to move toward her father, her face lighting up, but Marcus caught her arm. "Stay here," he said quietly. "I'll handle this." "Handle what?" Sarah asked, confusion in her voice. But Marcus was already walking toward Robert. He put on a tight smile, the kind he used in difficult business meetings. When he reached the older man, he spoke in a low voice. "Robert, thank you for coming to the ceremony." That meant a lot to Sarah. "But I think it's time for you to head home now. The reception is really just for..." "For what?" Robert interrupted, his smile fading. "For people who meet your standards?" "This is a formal event," Marcus said, his voice becoming sharper. "Look around. Look at what people are wearing. You're making people uncomfortable." Robert's eyes narrowed. "I'm making your rich friends uncomfortable because I'm not rich enough? Is that what you're telling me?" "I'm telling you this is not your place," Marcus said coldly. "You don't belong here." "Sarah will understand. She knows how important this night is for my career, for our future." "Our future," Robert repeated. "You mean your future, your career, your image." "Just leave," Marcus said. His voice had grown louder now. Other guests were definitely watching. "You're embarrassing yourself." "You're embarrassing Sarah, just go." For a moment, Robert just stood there staring at Marcus. The older man's eyes were filled with hurt and disappointment. Then, without a word, he set the small wrapped gift on a nearby table, turned and walked out of the ballroom. Marcus straightened his jacket and turned back to the reception. ready to smooth things over, to laugh it off, to get the evening back on track. That's when he saw Sarah. She was standing exactly where he had left her, but she no longer looked like a radiant bride. Her face was pale. Her eyes were filled with tears. Her hands were shaking. She had seen everything. She had heard everything. Marcus started walking toward her. "Sarah, listen, I just thought—" "Stop," Sarah said. Her voice was quiet but firm. "Don't come any closer." The band had stopped playing. The entire ballroom had gone silent. 300 guests watched as Sarah set down her bouquet on a table. She removed her veil carefully, folding it with precise movements. Then she looked directly at Marcus, and he saw something in her eyes he had never seen before. Not anger. Something worse. Disappointment. "My father," Sarah began, her voice growing stronger, "raised me alone after my mother died when I was 7 years old. He worked 3 jobs to keep food on the table and a roof over our heads. He helped me with homework every night, even when he was exhausted. He saved every penny so I could go to college. He went without new clothes, without vacations, without anything for himself, so I could have a better life." Marcus opened his mouth to respond, but Sarah raised her hand. "That man you just threw out like garbage," she continued, "sat beside my hospital bed for 3 weeks when I had pneumonia in 8th grade. That man taught me to ride a bike, to drive a car, to stand up for myself. That man walked me down the aisle, today with tears of joy in his eyes because he was so proud of me, so happy I had found someone I loved." Tears were streaming down Sarah's face now, but her voice remained steady. "I thought I had found someone worthy of my father's blessing," she said. "I thought I had found a man who valued character over money, love over status, family over image. I was wrong." Marcus felt panic rising in his chest. "Sarah, please. We can work this out. I made a mistake. I'll apologize. You'll what?" Sarah asked. "You'll apologize to make me feel better? You'll apologize to save face in front of all these people? You won't apologize because you genuinely understand. What you did was cruel and wrong. You don't have that kind of heart, Marcus. I see that now." She picked up the small wrapped gift her father had left on the table. She held it carefully, protectively. "This is who you are," Sarah said quietly. "You value appearances more than people. You value money more than kindness. You value status more than integrity. I can't marry someone like that. I won't." "You are married to someone like that," Marcus said desperately. "We just took vows an hour ago." "Then we'll untake them," Sarah replied. "An annulment. I'm sure your lawyers can handle it quickly and quietly. That's what matters to you, right? Keeping things quiet, maintaining your image." She turned to face the silent crowd of guests. "I apologize to all of you for this scene," she said. "Thank you for coming. Please enjoy the food and the music. I'm sure Marcus will be happy to celebrate alone." Then Sarah Hayes, she would never use the name, Sarah Chen, walked out of the ballroom, still wearing her white wedding dress, still carrying her father's gift. Marcus stood frozen in the center of the silent ballroom, surrounded by 300 witnesses to his shame. He never saw Sarah again. She filed for annulment the following week. Marcus heard later that she had moved back in with her father while she got back on her feet. He heard she had gone back to school to get her master's degree. He heard she was happy. Marcus remained successful. His career continued to climb. But he never forgot the look in Sarah's eyes that night, the disappointment that cut deeper than anger ever could. Sometimes, late at night, he thought about Robert Hayes's old suit and weathered hands. He thought about the small wrapped gift. He never learned what was inside it, and he understood far too late that the poorest man in that ballroom that night had been him.